impact. Delighted to welcome Barbara Cosgrave to you in your business studio. Hi, Barbara.
Good afternoon, Alec, and happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
Thanks very much for that. We've no relationship, but it's always nice to be able to say it anyway.
Absolutely.
Like fantastic. And you're all in red as well, Valentine's. You couldn't be more appropriately dressed, but we'll talk about your color choice later on in our chat. But I must take you back to your last year in school. I mean, some of my guests are people who have careers mapped out, they're academics. Well, you were a bit different. You had a bit of a travel bug, I think.
I did. I grew up near the busy seaport as it was then in Liverpool. And I loved watching the ships go down the Mersey estuary and their foghorns tooting. And as a little girl, 5 or 6, I'd be wondering, where are they going? Who's on board? And I want to go too. So that was all buried inside me. And I also had a great aunt who traveled the world, and she would send me postcards from weird and wonderful places. All this was inside. I never told anybody. Everybody thought this shy girl was going to do as she was told and become a teacher or a nurse or a lawyer, as people wanted in those days. But although I towed the line for a little while, there came a time when I just had to get out there and go and see the world. It had always been my dream. And to be honest, I haven't changed. It's still the same today.
It's amazing we have these bugs inside as we have to go. I mean, you did go through the motions of sort of teacher training and that sort of thing.
Yes, I did. I got accepted into teacher training college, and then I was like a dog who doesn't want to go through anywhere, digs its heels in. I thought, I can't do this. And I think really at that point, although I didn't use these exact words to myself, I was thinking, this is not me. This is not who I am. I have this lust for adventure and to see the world, and I've just got to go and do it.
It certainly shows your independent style in the sense there would have been sort of peer pressure to sort of knuckle down and follow one of the careers that most people were expected to follow in those days.
It did, because I mean, I was quite a shy girl, if you can imagine that. These days, nobody believes that. And my friends and cousins and family, when I said I'd booked a passage on a cargo ship, they're going, what, Barbara? And I'd say, yeah, Barbara. The Barbara you never knew. This is the me coming out. So I think they were all too shocked to try and talk me out of it. And by the time they'd thought about it, I was boarding the ship on the Albert docks 45 years ago this year.
Wow. And again, it wasn't a conventional passenger liner. Tell people what you did.
It was a cargo ship on the Blue Star Line. And it was the cheapest way of getting a passage on a ship going somewhere exciting in the world. And to me, that was an exciting place to be. It wasn't the usual place that people went. In fact, in those days, not many people had foreign holidays at all. And so it was a cargo ship going out there. You could book a passage. They took 6 passengers on the ship. There was a family of 5 going out to the north of Brazil to work the father already had. And there was me. And apart from that, it was a working ship. And we were just there in our hammocks going through all the storms, the decks being flooded, goodness knows what. And I remember sailing out of the Mersey estuary past those iconic buildings, the Liver buildings and all the docks, and thinking, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Which, to be honest, I have thought frequently during my life, but I carry on doing it anyway.
Yeah, and I think there's a poignant lesson for people sometimes to follow your heart,
yes,
even though it may not be as conventional as people want it to be.
Yes, and you can look conventional on the outside, but you still might have all those dreams inside. And so I've said to my younger relatives, for example, just be true to yourself. It doesn't have to be forever. No job has to be forever. Give it a go.
Yeah. Seize the day, carpe diem, isn't that it?
Exactly.
So, I mean, but it wasn't Benetton, it was Brazil. I mean, you're starting straight away, of course, with a language barrier. Tell me about you arriving there and how you overcame that.
I arrived in Rio by chance because I thought I was going to go to Argentina because the ship was going north of Brazil, down the coast of Brazil to Argentina, because we had the Falklands and everything going on. And the purser on the ship said, so what's your plans when you get there? And, you know, I didn't really have any. I just wanted to go. And clearly they saw what this kind of green, naive, pale English girl going out, and they knew Rio like the back of their hands and felt a bit protective, I think. And so the purser, his wife was the British consul in Rio. And he said, if you want to find work, get off at Rio, not Argentina, and go and see my wife, which I did. And I had learned shorthand and typing in college, as some people did in those days. And I got to the British consulate and they had a secretary going on home leave for 3 months. And they said, can you do shorthand and typing? And I said, I can, and I'm quite good at it. And I got the job. And
Fantastic.
That's how it went.
Wow. I mean, again, if you don't take the chances, you never know what will happen. So, okay, you're in the British consulate. So at least that language barrier is not something initially that you're having to cope with.
No, but I mean, the girls I worked with, some were Anglo-Brazilian, others Brazilians. They were very keen that I learned, and they liked to trick me and teach me words that I shouldn't really know. But I used to go out with them socializing because I knew nobody else there. And there was one particular girl, an Anglo-Brazilian girl. Her parents were Scottish, so I became friendly with them. And there was another girl, Brazilian. Brazilian people are very hospitable, and they took me into their families. And I learned Portuguese like a child does growing up, just being absorbed in it, and through absolute necessity, to be honest with you. Nothing like necessity to make you learn.
True. I was fascinated by you learning your first Portuguese word, which was based on something you ordered in a place to eat.
The first day in Rio, I got a bit hungry. I walked into the nearest cafe. I was on a beach called Botafogo, which is the one before Copacabana and Ipanema, so not quite as smart. And I just walked into a cafe, looked at the list and thought, oh, well, here goes, pointed at something and ordered it. Didn't know what I was getting. And it was called dobradinha, my first word in Portuguese. And when it arrived, it was a plate of tripe. I didn't eat it. I paid and I walked out, but I never forgot the word.
Say not. Fantastic. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to me, Alec, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest today is Barbara Cosgrave. And we're just talking about her early days in Brazil. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so the girl who was on 3 months leave and you're praying she'll never come back, but she does.
She did. She did. By that time, I was conversationally fluent in Portuguese, what we would call colloquial language, everyday street language. But if I needed to find a job, I needed to hone the grammar. So before she arrived back, I went to night school. It was an American school in Rio who taught English to Brazilians, and they also taught Portuguese to Americans living in Rio. So I went there and brushed up my grammar, and then she came back and I didn't have a job anymore, although I had lots of new friends. And I went out purposefully to find a job. I needed to find one because my ticket to Rio on the cargo ship was valid for 3 months, and it was a return ticket. So I was either going to have to get back on the ship with my tail between my legs, having failed, or I found a job. So I walked up and down a busy street in Rio called Avenida Rio Branco, which is the business area, and also the street where Carnival happens every year, knocking on doors. Can somebody please give me a job? I eventually got a job with Bank of America as bilingual PA to the vice president of Bank of America. And there was a little bit of, well, there was a lot of luck, let's face it, but there was a little bit of the fact that in Brazil at that time, having an English PA was quite the thing to have. So I went to work in Bank of America with a big fat dictionary stuck under my desk, because coming from Liverpool, I never say, no, I can't do that. I always say yes and learn overnight. And, and that's how I started. And I stayed there 4 years.
And tell me, what was that experience like? I mean, you're now working for a large corporation. What was the culture like? And did you get any sort of mentorship and training and things?
Yes, in Bank of America, it was multinational. There were people from all over the world working in the bank. The vice president was American. I worked for a Frenchman called Guy Laroche. I'll never forget his name. Very pedantic person. There were Brazilian secretaries there. They all helped. They all took me under their wing and helped me with my Portuguese, and took me out to places with their friends. So it was wonderful. And of course, we worked really hard. America, in those days, I don't know if it's the same, they expect you to work hard, in really early, and work with your nose to the grindstone all day. But then at the end of the day, Alec, I had Copacabana Beach and Ipanema Beach on my doorstep. And I went from being very American and European in work to being very Brazilian after work, on the beach, partying, meeting friends, trying not to fry myself like a beetroot because I'm very fair, I don't tan. And I got the nickname La Inglesa Blanquinha, the little white girl.
Fantastic. It must have been a great time, because I mean, I suppose we hear today that sort of you have to mind yourself in terms of crime and everything. I presume it was a bit different then, or was it?
No, it wasn't different. In fact, I think it might have been worse. The one thing I hadn't done was my research on the political scene before I went to Brazil. I'm a bit of an eternal optimist, and for me, I was just going. It was a military government at the time. There was a newspaper in Rio which had two little spiders on the bottom of the page. You couldn't speak out against the government, and the little spiders would say to each other, "Did you hear so-and-so disappeared overnight last night?" You think, crikey. Wow. Now, the third night I was in Rio, having not realized all of this, I'm on Copacabana Beach, it's sunset, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm on this beautiful tropical beach. I'm going to walk on the beach at sunset. I got arrested at gunpoint by the Brazilian police, and I hadn't known there was a curfew. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get shot. My mother will never know. I don't speak enough Portuguese yet to know what's going on. And so that was a big learning curve.
I'd say it was. That must have been a bit of a shocker. How did you get out of that?
Well, here we go. Luck of the Irish again. I must have a bit of Irish in me. Copacabana has a big avenida that runs alongside it. I saw this big yellow Cadillac pulling up on the side of the road, and I'm panicking, thinking, how do I get out of this? A big, tall Texan came over to where I was with the police. "Can I help you, Mom?" "Yes, please. Yes, please." He said, "Don't worry, my wife's in the car. You're safe." He spoke to the police. He said, "It's okay. They want your passport and they want a bribe." That's how it was. He said, "Come with me and my wife. We'll make sure you're safe, and we'll take you back to the police station tomorrow to get your passport and pay the bribe." And that's how it was. And as you can see, it worked, because I'm still here.
Yeah, baptism of fire. All right, so you had 5 years in Brazil, and obviously you could have spent the rest of your life there, but unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, there was a lure of something else.
There was. I had dated a few Brazilian guys out there, and it's a very matriarchal society, and what mother says goes. And then at a carnival party where we'd been up 3 days and nights partying in the streets, breakfast on the beach, I met a Yorkshireman, and we dated for a while, and he turned out to be a really good cook, and I just thought, oh, I think I'll keep this one. And and we stayed together for the last, I'd been 2 years in Rio by then, so we stayed together there in Rio another 3 years. Then his contract with Cable and Wireless was up, and he was going back to the UK, and I went with him because he asked me to marry him.
Fantastic. Right. Yes. So you had to go all the way to Brazil to find a Yorkshire husband.
Do you know what? He was lovely, but I'm from Lancashire, and my dad was not impressed. He got to like him in the end, but you know, Peter had to have a passport to come into Liverpool.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So you're back in the UK. Um, I'm not sure how valuable Portuguese will be to you there, and the grey skies are sort of barking at you. What was on your mind? How are you going to survive?
What was on my mind was I'd got married, and I'm thinking, looking at my new husband, thinking, why have you brought me back to this dull place? It took a while to adjust to. We'd come home from Brazil in July, which was very hot, to the cold English, what seemed to me like freezing summer. I got work in offices, as I'd been doing in Rio, and quickly found I was bored to death because I didn't have Copacabana Beach to play on. And I decided to start my own business.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll tell our listeners how you went about that process.
Okay. So I decided that if I was going to start my own business, which is hard, whatever your business is, running your own business is hard, it might as well be something I loved doing as something I just did to get paid. So I wrote a list of all the things I loved doing, all the things that I had a natural talent at. I thought I was quite a creative person. Via my mum and my great aunt who'd been in the theatre, I was interested in fashion and self-presentation. And then I made a list of all the things I hated doing, like being stuck in an office, being told what to do by somebody else. And I decided to find a business that fitted my passions on the love list. And then I retrained in beauty therapy at first, in style and fashion, and over the years developed the business in my own way, the way I wanted it to be.
And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to me, Alec, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest today is Barbara Cosgrave. And we're just about to hear about how you developed that business. Now you've found something you love, which is fashion and style, but you've now to monetize that in some way.
Exactly. So, well, you're going to see a trend here. I just plunged straight in.
Yeah.
As I do with everything. I had a premises. I had a small business loan from Lloyd's Bank at the time, and I started up and I employed people. So I had beauty therapy, I had massage, I had exercise, so I employed people. And that went on for about 8 years or so. And,
right.
You know, I guess people out there listening who run their own businesses will know that actually you probably need to know everything that everybody does for you yourself, because often they'll be off, sick, and you've got to fill the gaps.
Yes.
And I had somebody there doing style and color, and let me down a lot. And I don't like letting people down, especially my customers. So I learned to do what she did. My lease on the premises came up for renewal and I decided I didn't need it anymore. So I went solo and I started developing the business my way. And I remember being at a conference in London in the mid-90s and somebody tapping me on the shoulder and saying to me, we'd been at the conference together, a lot of people, and saying, yep. Do you do image and style? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, I thought so. It looks like it. And I thought, oh, great, it works. And, and she was from Johnson & Johnson, fast track graduate recruit scheme. And she said, do you work with business people? And again, because I'm from Liverpool, I wasn't going to say no. So I said, yes, I can do that. And that started me morphing into the niche, which I have and love now, which is styling people for business, how to represent themselves in their own business, or for career promotion within a company, or for interview.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that for a minute. And you have an acronym you use.
I do have an acronym. I use the word impact. So creating a great impact, because I mean, I guess everybody knows about the power of a great first impression. But to me, your impact and your image is not just about what you wear, it's your attitude to people, it's your courtesy, your business ethics, your trustworthiness. Are you a person that people trust to deliver on what you do, come hell or high water? And so the word impact was your image, your media presence, your personal presence, your attitude, the way you communicate, and trust. So that's the 6 steps of the way I work.
Okay, so I mean, you'd gone from sort of working high street, now moving more into the corporate world, and your experience with the person from Johnson & Johnson. Okay, she's asked the question, tell me how that business then developed out of that. Did you met up with her, did you, and get some?
I went to the offices. They had their fast track graduate recruit scheme, who were graduates they wanted to promote up through the company of Johnson, which is a huge company, as you know. And for some of them, they felt their attitude and
Interestingly, Barbara, we were just talking about how you had been working in the high street for a number of years and employing people, but now you were going to transition across into the world of big business. You had had your first contact with Johnson & Johnson. How did that work out for you? What was going to happen next?
It worked very well. We didn't have a lot of business networking in those days. And to be honest with you, the business grew via word of mouth.
Right, right.
So I was passed on.
And what was the sort of appetite then? Because, you know, people are very sensitive about how they dress and being told how to dress or what's expected or not expected of them.
Yeah, well, that was very true for the first young group of graduate recruits I worked with, especially the young men, because coming to see somebody like me voluntarily is one thing, being sent by somebody is something else. And some people almost feel it's a bit of an insult.
Right.
So the young female graduate recruits would come in and say, that's great, Barbara, you know, what else can I do? Well, how can I improve my image? And the young men would come in and go, well, I don't know what's the matter with the way I look now. So you had to turn that around and say, nothing, but you're working for a big worldwide organization. They really believe in you. They want to promote you, but they would like you to reflect the company image while you're doing that. So if you can just do that, you're one of their fast track recruits, you're going to get promoted faster. And that worked.
I'd say it did. I mean, if we talk about now, because we've come through the whole COVID experience, and there's been a lot of what I might call down dressing and being acceptable to be that. How do you see that transitioning into the future?
Well, I'm already getting feedback from companies and organizations who are keen to get people back to dressing smartly, especially on Zoom. I mean,
right.
I think during lockdown, we all were a bit down and wondering where on earth we were going to be in a year and losing on mojo, for the want of a better word. But now people are using my blogs on my website about presenting yourself on Zoom. You need to remember that you are still in business presenting your best self, even though you're on Zoom. And people do judge us. We do it subconsciously. We don't do it maliciously.
Sure.
I mean, way back in 1953, there were studies about how we judge each other visually.
Yes.
And we make certain assumptions, like, do you look like you pay attention to detail? And so yes. It's really important that even on Zoom, we still pay attention to those details. So I have had various talks and blogs about those very things. And, you know, business is bubbling again now. I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but we are going back out there to meetings. Sure. And we need to try to remember that, you know, well, I say especially as a sole trader, anybody really, you are walking into a room representing who you are and your business. And as my great aunt used to say, you need to command the stage, my dear.
And I suppose in about the 2 minutes we've left here, what sort of tips would you give to business people? Now, I'm not asking about dress sense, but just understanding about their own personal brand and the importance of it.
I think it's really important to have your own personal brand. And by that, I mean, include your own unique personality in your brand as well, and be comfortable with it and become known for it, the way you do business, the kind of person you are. So really focus on what is it that people admire about you. And sometimes you have to go and ask some uncomfortable questions. None of us like asking, do we? We're a bit shy.
Sure.
About saying, you know, what is it that I do well? What do you like about me? And if you can take that, a business coach years ago, an Irish lady called Fiona Harrold sent me out to do that. Oh no, really? You're going to make me do that? And I did it because I had to report back to her the next week. I'm being quite an obedient girl. I did it, and I was quite surprised at the positive things that people came back to tell me. And so I focused on those positive things that they liked and included it more in my personal brand.
So realistically, what you're saying is have an open mind that there are sometimes much better ways of presenting yourself, and don't take it as a personal insult if people are helping.
Exactly. And listen to the people that you want as your clients. Listen to what they want. Listening is a great skill.
It certainly is. And as we come to the end here, where can people find out more about you, Barbara, and tips and all of that?
All those tips, they're on my website, which is barbaracosgrave.co.uk, on my LinkedIn and Instagram, which is Barbara Cosgrave Stylist. And if I could just add one last thing,
yes,
is learn to value your customers. And I have a quick little story I can tell you if you've got time for it.
My editor shall decide that.
So I went back to a coffee shop to meet a friend that I hadn't seen for a couple of years during the pandemic in an area called Chobham in Surrey. And we walked in and it wasn't very busy, as they all are at the moment. And the owner, who's an elderly Turkish guy, came up to us and said, "Ladies, it's so lovely to see you back here again. How are you?" And I thought, gosh, he's got a good memory. I was only ever in here once or twice. Made a fuss of us and really made us feel valued, and that he remembered us being in his cafe. And it was only when I was at home at night and thinking, he probably didn't remember us. He was just giving good client service and value, and he made us feel special and valued. So make your customers feel special, make them feel valued. I send out to my customers birthday cards and messages and things like that. And it's those little things like, haven't seen you for ages, how are you, how's the dog? Personal things.